or anything.
Yeah, I think we're live.
Yes, we are. It is still setting up.
You'll tell us when to begin?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
No?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Francesco. Good morning, everybody who's
Good morning, everybody. Yeah.
linking in with us today. It's great that we can do this conversation. This is, I think, the first in the program of live interventions as part of Me Family, which is a new digital project that's been developed by Moudam Luxembourg, the Musée d'Art Moderne Grand Duc Jean, and which was launched last week. I'm delighted. My name is Suzanne Cotter, and I'm the director of Moudam Luxembourg, and I'm delighted to be able to have this brief exchange with Francesco Bonami, who is in fact the curator of Me Family, the project, which I'll explain in a moment, together with Emanuela Mazzonis and with the participation of Luigi Alberto Cipini. The project Me Family actually began as an exhibition conceived from Moudam, for the spaces of Moudam. And Francesco, you were invited to develop this exhibition based on an idea that you yourself had, which related to the iconic exhibition of Edward Steichen called The Family of Man. It's an exhibition that was actually presented at the Museum of Modern Art in New York in 1955. And then subsequently traveled to 150 museums around the world. It involved 503 photographs by 273 artists from 68 countries, and the sweep of Steichen's curatorial thesis was a kind of universalized view of humanity through the cycles of life from birth until death. That exhibition, in its exhibition form, is preserved and on this permanent display here in Luxembourg, in the north of the country, in the town of Clairvaux. So it's an archive, it's kind of a living archive, and it was this archive that was the point of departure for you. I'd like to sort of ask you to talk a little bit more about that. Beforehand, I would just like to explain that the exhibition that you did develop for us was subsequently transformed in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. And quite early on, I think as early as March, when the pandemic began to really unfurl in here in Europe, and we realized that the movement of artists and of people that were needed to realize the exhibition was becoming more and more difficult. You, in fact, I remember, sent an email saying, maybe in light of the content of the show and what the show is about, it should just all be digital anyway. We spent a couple of months thinking about that during lockdown, looking at scenarios, and then really exploring whether it really would be a viable thing for us to do. And if we could do it, how could we do it in a way that was substantial and somehow maintain some of the integrity of the original curatorial project. So that we did do, and we were able to collaborate with Base Design, who have studios in Brussels and also in New York, as well as with you and Emanuela Luigi Alberto and our curatorial and communications and technical teams here at the museum. We also were able to bring on board the collaboration of all of the artists whose work is shown and who really are at the center of this entire project, but to create something we don't really talk about as an exhibition as such, but it's a platform for engagement, it's a platform for visibility for their work, and for users or viewers to be able to interact with it to some degree. So it's become another project. It's really been quite radical for us to be able to do it. Very exciting. We didn't know what to expect at the beginning. We also produced a publication which exists alongside this platform, and that's something that also is available to purchase online. But back to the project, Francesco, can you tell us something about the way you developed the original curatorial concept and how that sort of morphed into this project that we're really engaging with now online?
Well, good morning. I'm Francesco Bonami, and together with Emanuela Mazzonis, we start thinking about this exhibition, The Family of Man, 1955, and it's a very important year because I was born then. So no, I'm joking. But the show by Edward Steichen at MoMA was very radical, and I start looking into this exhibition and how it developed in that years. We are talking 65 years ago, and at that time Steichen did something that today is, from a curatorial point of view, is almost impossible. He took it was a show based on photography. There was no other medium, but was about photography. And he took the work of a famous photographer of different nature and knowledge and vision, and reassemble it into this exhibition, changing scale, changing cropping. It was something that some of the photographers in the exhibition didn't even like the approach of Steichen, but went along with it. And the exhibition became a real experiment in museum exhibitions. And one thing that caught my attention, and that the show was produced in a few editions. I mean, it was and could travel simultaneously around the world. I think it traveled in 80 venues, in 1955, all around the world, sometimes simultaneously. And again, it's something that today we could not do it. Not because, of course, a painting cannot be shown simultaneously in 80 places or even 2 places. A sculpture cannot be shown. But to me, it was a reflection on the nature of art. In an age that many artists work digitally, through photography, through video, through film, medium that can be actually shared simultaneously, I reflect on the idea that artists become more protective on their uniqueness of the authorship. So sometimes if you ask an artist, can we show this video here and there? They say, oh no, unfortunately not, because the video is in 2 editions, and one is there and the other one is there, and it cannot be shown again unless you. And I found on interesting, not in a negative way, but interesting in the fact that in an age that allow to share things, some artists are become more, they like to share less. And that was an interesting idea that make me think. I mean, our dream would have been to do something like Steichen, to do a multiple show that could be shown everywhere. Then COVID came, and this we didn't even went into this idea that would have been almost impossible to do it. But COVID came, and I think I'm not a digital person at all. I'm not someone obsessed with online things and things like that. But with my surprise, you, Suzanne, came along and start reflecting on the possibility of transforming something very physical in, as you call it, not digital, but a platform. You know, we didn't transform the exhibition in a digital version of the exhibition. We utterly transformed the nature of the idea into something completely different, which is becoming a platform. And I hope that people will enjoy this format of talking about something. We cannot say showing about something. And I think that I'm not here praising Mudam because they first I praise them because we present to Suzanne the idea with Emanuela. I want to just do a little note. Steichen was originally from Luxembourg, and there is a museum of the family of man near Luxembourg, so which is fantastic. And I encourage everybody, even during lockdown, if it's open, to go to visit the museum of the family of man, because it's a fascinating place with some original pieces of the original exhibition at MoMA. So it is really an amazing experience. So that I will encourage. But you know, the link between Steichen and Luxembourg was very strong, and Suzanne liked the idea and for the exhibition. And after, she was able to push this other idea of the platform, which, I mean, it could sound normal, but it's not. A lot of institutions during COVID postpone indefinitely or bluntly cancel exhibition, and I understandably. And Mudam instead wanted to go along with the exhibition on another dimension, and we succeeded with all the help of everybody. I mean, this effort would not have been possible without the involvement of everybody. You know, all the curator, the marketing, everybody in the museum, Emanuela Mazzones, Luigi Alberto Cippini, all the artists that have been involved. And this is, I mean, it sounds idealistic, but I don't see anything wrong in a moment like this to be a little bit idealistic. I think it was a collective effort where, in a way, you know, we all joined forces to produce something quite experimental and quite fascinating. If it will work, if it will be a success, well, that's part of the experiments are beautiful because allow the possibility of exploring new venue and exploring new way of failing, new way of succeeding, and things like that. So I think that it's, and what we're doing now is also one of the little fragments of this experiment. And I think we prove that in a moment of crisis, we can still do something which is propositional. We can propose something, and we don't sit back and wait the crisis to finish. I mean, we use this banality. You never waste a crisis, you know? And I think that we can say that we didn't waste a crisis.
I mean, Francesco, for a couple of points. I mean, one is, I mean, thanks for your really kind words about us and all the team. But, you know, part of the process of reflection about what we would do was sort of, we didn't want to go through a period of mourning, let's say. We did go through a little period of mourning about the exhibition when we realized we had to take the decision not to go ahead with the physical exhibition. But I, as a director, was really bolstered actually by many of the younger members of the team at Mudam, who we were, during one of our weekly Zoom afternoon teas during the lockdown here in Luxembourg, we talked about it. And I said, well, this is what we're going to do, you know, we're thinking about. And a number of colleagues, the younger colleagues, you know, in different services said, but we're doing all this work, we're thinking about the digital, you know, it would be wonderful if we could do it. So they were really, I think I was encouraged by them because they sort of really saw the potential. So I think that, you know, knowing that there was a dispersed energy and will to sort of take it through. But I also, other things, I think what's interesting about the platform, and I've spent time going through it all, is how, I've been so impressed really myself by how much the work that is on the platform engages you and the ideas of the artists. And at times I felt very moved watching it. And I noticed one of my colleagues here, Eve Hoffman, talked about how many people that he knows who sit outside of the art world, who are not regular museum visitors, have, because of the communication around the platform, had been engaging with it and were very, very comfortable with it, because people are used to sitting in front of a computer screen, and they're more comfortable watching a lot of the durational work, because a lot of the work on the platform is film and animations, and it's durational. They're much more comfortable engaging with it on the screen than they might be in going into a museum and into a big spatial installation. So that, I think that's an interesting feedback. But I wanted to also pick up on your point, when you were talking about Steichen exhibition itself. And I remember when we went to Clairvaux to visit it together, must be 2 years ago now. Yeah. And although you knew about it, you'd not actually visited it where it is held here in Luxembourg. And I remember you being struck by the fact that Steichen had worked with photojournalists. And you mentioned the radicality of the exhibition, but the fact that Steichen himself was a photographer associated with pictorialism and the 291 gallery and modernity and photography's history and its evolution in being recognized as a fine art medium, to be doing this exhibition where he's working with photojournalists. So there was a kind of promiscuity that's embodied in this particular exhibition. And it struck me when going through the platform and engaging with the many different works that you and Emanuela sort of selected for Me Family, that there is a similar kind of promiscuity, even though we can engage with all of this by way of digital technology. We're looking at very different forms. So we have this more pure, let's call it video, in the work of Doug Aitken, which is amazing on screen. We think of Doug Aitken's work, experiencing it really in this immersive, very physical, corporeal way. But actually it's still incredibly compelling when you view it on screen. But then you have other artists who are working with game technology. I'm thinking of Garam Kim's amazing videos, Harun Farocki, who's this kind of a forensic drilling down into the history of visualization with the development of technology, but contains within it certain, I think, critical reflections, or it encourages you to have them. So I wonder if you could just say something about the selection of artists who are actually participating in this project.
Well, again, we didn't want to do a remake of The Family of Man, and so, but we reflected on the nature of the exhibition, and as you talk about the word promiscuity between more art photography and photojournalism, and I think we have been more, we became more and more sectorial in terms of selection of works in the proceeding in the last 65 years. Before there was photojournalism, there was photography, and within photography, I think there was photojournalism, there was fine art photography, but they were not, the boundaries were not so clear and divided. I think that, I don't know, but I don't think that Steichen was looking down to photojournalists when he was including his exhibition. He was looking at, a little bit like a painter can look at abstraction or figurative or photorealism, not looking down, but as part of the same language, but with variation. It's like music. Today we are a little bit more sectorial, as I say. and so we were trying to look at an exhibition that was experiential, that was more up to time with the real world that we live now. I mean, a lot of young people see reality through digital media, through digital tools, through computer, video, telephones. And so we are thinking that maybe the way to pay an homage to the family of men was to look at through this medium. So we limited, actually, we almost excluded completely classical tool medium like a sculpture, or painting or something, because we thought that would be interesting to create an exhibition where the viewer was experiencing. And with the help of Luigi Alberto Cippini for the installation, we had conceived a show where you could go and simultaneously even listen to the sound of different video and then be able to focus on each of them individually, but at the same time, we were stressing the cacophony of the exhibition as a reflection of the cacophony of the world.
Yeah.
So that's the way we approach the show and the selection of the work. And we have to say that most of the artists really went along with that, and was a refreshing way to see a show. And then, because of the nature of the show, I think that that's why we are, even into these circumstances, we are able to be here, because as I want to stress it, what we did with the platform is not a replacement of the exhibition. Going to a museum as it will be, and I really am adamant about this, will always be a unique experience. Crossing the threshold of the museum, the symbolic space, like crossing the threshold of a theater, crossing the threshold of a movie theater, will never be replaced by any digital thing,
I think that comes across too in the platform, because, for example, there are certain artists who participated but whose work was actually physical, such as, I'm thinking of Simon Fujiwara's empathy work, or the installation we were planning with Rudolf Stingel. So on the platform, you can see stills of different installation views of these works as they've been presented in different places. And I find it interesting because you could say they're a kind of documentation. They're a representation, but they don't pretend to be, this is the work. And in some ways, I like the fact that they say, well, you really would have to experience this in the place, physically and in real time. So it's not trying to translate work into the digital medium, say, yes, you too can experience it. So I think it speaks to that point.
We hope to enhance also the desire,
Yeah, exactly.
To see things. I think it's something that we all have experienced in our life, to see an image of a famous work of art and having this desire to go to see it in real life. And so we hope that this will even for the work that cannot be really given the whole, not even the whole, not even the taste of what it is in real life, but give only the, as you say, it's not a documentation, just an hint of what the work could be in real life. We hope that the people will increase the desire to go into the physical museum, to see certain things that in the platform are just, let's say, mentioned, but cannot be really offered in the fair capacity of an experience, like Rudolf Stingel and Fujiwara. So I think that the platform become also a kind of a teaser for the real experience of those works, or maybe other works. And then now, there is the permanent collection on Moodam would have been part of the Me Family exhibition that can be seen and visited. And so I think that and was installed with an idea by the Cippini studio.
The installation design is.
So I think that also there we people can see, have a taste of what can be done within the real space of a museum in an innovative way. And to this, full credit to the Budam, to you, and also to your team that came along. As you know, I've worked in museum and I've worked in institution as a freelancer, and I have to admit that I always found certain resistance in changing the rules and the pattern of exhibition making. And in this case, I mean, I found that a total porous environment, willing to accept not my idea, but the circumstances, and shape them into something that we hope is going to be strong enough to sustain the idea.
I think this idea of porosity is, I was thinking exactly the same word, actually. I think it's really important. And that if we think of the project of Me Family as being tremendously porous, I mean, I think we have 5 minutes to go before we're going to close off, but I did also want to just highlight the fact that in terms of the work that people can access on the platform, you know, among the many artists whose work is there, and projects such as the display, the permanent collection display here in the museum, we have works by artists such as Sofia Almeria, who's this sort of incredible, almost abstract work, but based on her and her sister walking through a Dubai mall, and Lara Baladi's amazing work, which is sort of based on her archives of the Egyptian Revolution and its aftermath, and for which, as an accompaniment to a kind of representation of that work, where there's also a portal into the archives, she's been developing since 2011, more of the, you know, the revolutionary protests in Tahrir Square in Cairo, this very, very beautiful animation called A Lesson in History. So the platform is also, you know, there's this porosity in that there are things that are presented, it gives you desire, there's things you can engage with, and there are works that have been made especially for it. And I think as a result of this sort of program, 8.5 as well, there'll be other content, such as our content, but conversations with some of the artists that will continue to feed it. I mean, perhaps just a final point, we have 3 minutes, but maybe to hear from you, Francesco, you know, to go back to, you know, Steinchen's project, which I think is recognized as was a universalizing portrait, or an attempt to offer a universal portrait of humanity in the post-war nuclear age. I mean, this project, Me Family, it's not less affirming in that way. You mentioned earlier this fact that it was really about the reality of now. And that reality of now is anything from certain. We cannot sort of place all of humanity and their loves, desires, loves, needs, disappointments, all within the same compartment. I think, you know, and again, I think in relation to the idea of the digital or technology, that it's not a panacea. It's not the answer, it's not the solution to everything, but it's part of a bigger set of possibilities. I just would like to hear from you on that before we say goodbye.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not a panacea, it's not a cure, it's not a solution, it's not a replacement, and it's in a way more realistic way to look at the world with all those ups and downs. Nothing is taken for granted. While I think Steichen was more, in a way, idealistic, romantic, and also a little bit paternalistic. I mean, if we look at the show of Steichen today with a cynical eye, we could say that was a little bit something like, I don't remember who called it, like National Geographic pornography, in the sense that we look at the world as this, you know, where poverty becomes folkloristic, you know, stress and pain become kind of visually interesting. It was more the kind of photography. Today we are much more aware of the pains and inequality and injustice of the world. So we cannot look with the same eyes that I can look at those things. We have to be very aware of that, very realistic, very respectful, and we cannot just take the world and turn it into our, as I say, National Geographic curatorial experience. We have to. I think that was a good experiment and good experience for us curator, and I hope for the Mudam to see how you look at the world. The name is Me Family because today we look at the world from our own individual point of view through the social media, Instagram, Facebook, and all this, Twitter. But to stress the idea of the platform is that the platform is allowed in a way the viewer to have enter the idea of the former exhibition as more intimately, and the viewer can embrace the show and put his voice or her voice or their voices into something quite new. That is something that in a museum cannot really do. People cannot. They're not allowed, but they don't feel comfortable to start voicing their their enthusiasm or their protest against a work of art. They feel intimidated. The platform is, I hope, less intimidating, and we hope that the viewer feel that way, respecting the platform. That's the message to the viewer. We respect the viewer. The viewer should respect the platform and not find it a way where they can voice any possible, That's, I think, I look at things positively. I think the great positivity of today's world, of the Me Family, as that the social media are very dangerous, but at the same time, they, for who can use it, develop a great sense of responsibilities. What we say is our responsibility. So we can be angry, we can be happy, but it's our responsibility. What we say as curator, as viewers, as director of museum, is our responsibility. There is no safety net. We say something on the platform, you say it is there, and you have to take full responsibility of what you do. So I think it's an encouragement to the viewer to participate in, but to participate in a responsible way, as as responsible. We are all responsible. I think it's the show, if we can stress the last message of the exhibition, the Me Family should be an attempt to stress responsibilities in any form and shape we can envision responsibilities, artists, curator, everything. So I really I hope that people will enjoy this way of understanding art and the responsibility toward art and of art toward the people.
Yeah. Francesco, thank you so much.
Thank you again.
We have to end now, but it's been fantastic speaking with you, and thank you for this.
Thank you very much to everybody.
Amazing project. Thank you for challenging us to
Thank you.
Go ahead. Have a great day. Thanks to everybody listening.